Today I'm working with LottieFiles State Machines. We have this wallet and payment cards animation. Let me quickly show you how it works. Then after that, I will explain the process behind it so you can essentially do the same with LottieFiles State Machines. So it starts with this particular loop where each card in the wallet, they are pulsing, they are moving. So it's just a basic position animation. And if you look down here, we have the total wallet balance. That is the total amount of money that is in all of the cards that are in this particular wallet. And if you hover on any individual card, that amount is going to change from total wallet balance to individual card balance. And if I move out of it, this goes back in place and then it returns to the global state with this particular loop. I can do the same for Stripe. And then I'll see the card balance for that particular card. So this is for Stripe. And once I'm in this hovering state, I have this shiny thing going on to make sure people know this is the card we are currently working with. And if I move out of here, it returns back to the wallet and then the global state starts loop again. I can do the same for the Visa card. And it shows the card balance on the wallet, the individual card balance. This is for Visa. And if I move away, it just returns back to the wallet and it goes back to the global state. And I can also move from, let's say from Discover, for example, to Stripe, and from Stripe to Visa. So that is also possible. You can move in between cards. And when you are highlighting any card, it starts with this gradient animation. So I particularly like that gradient animation. It's like really beautiful. And that's one of the features of Lottie. It supports gradient animation. So you can see that gradient animation there. And if I move out, it returns back to the wallet and it goes back to the global state. So let me just explain the thought process behind this, then I'll show you how to do the same with LottieFiles State Machines. I imagined a fintech app where you can essentially store all your cards from different platforms. You can store and manage and use those cards in just a single platform. So that is just, I saw one, I'll show you. I saw one illustration of the wallet, something similar to this, and I thought, oh, that's like a super brilliant idea. A fintech app where you can manage all your cards from different platforms. You can do things like get your card details, your card number, CVC, and all of those things. You can get your transfer history, your transaction history on all of the cards. You can get your card balance. You can do card settings and all of those things on a single platform. So I feel like that's like a very beautiful idea. And I designed this particular animation to be like a card on the landing page for that fintech app, that imaginary fintech app. So it's supposed to have a title and a description to further reinforce what the animation is all about. But I decided to remove that from the final animation because I'll be uploading this for free to the LottieFiles platform. So any user, anybody that wants to use the animation will be able to add their own title and description to the animation. So that is why I removed the title and the description from the final animation. We just have the animation itself with state machines, of course, so you can actually interact with it. And after doing the design in Adobe Illustrator, I just went into After Effects. It's like a pretty straightforward animation, and the first loop is just one single loop, and I did that with position animation. So they are just moving. I did the 3 position animation in one place, then I just I sequenced the Visa card from the Stripe and the Discover card. It's just like 2 frames between each, and then we have this beautiful position animation. Then from there, I went into the highlighting of the cards themselves. When you hover over each card, what happens? And I'm using a single text layer I'm using 2 text layers, one for the description of the balance and one for the balance itself. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically using a toggle hold keyframe to change the source text for when you hover over each card, it stops being the total wallet balance and then it shows you the individual balance for each card. And I'm able to do that with the .lottie format because I exported this with the font. So usually you transform text to glyphs because some players don't support it. But with Lottie player, I'm able to use the text with source text animation. So that is like super cool. So that's that. Then I did it for each card, for Stripe, and then for the Discover card. So after doing the animation, I just brought it into Lottie Creator, and then I added my segments. Let me just show you all of the segments I'm using in this animation. So we have the idle segments, which is the initial loop. If you notice, in the Lottie Creator field, the text is not showing because it is, like I said, I'm using original text here, not glyphs. Like those are actual text with font, and it's not going to show here. But once you render your animation and you're using the .lottie player, you'll be able, the text will render properly. So don't mind that. So like I was saying, we have this is the first section. This is going to be my global state. This first loop here where the cards are looping. This essentially invites interaction. I didn't want it to be like a stationary, the global state should be a stationary one. Because once this is happening, the user is typically tempted to want to at least maybe over the animation or click or something. This is signifying this is a part of the animation that can be interacted with. And we have the visa intro here. So for each of the cards, the highlighting section, the over section, I divided that into 3 segments. The intro, the loop, this is the visa loop, which is just the shiny thing going around the card. And I have an outro. That's when the card returns into the wallet. And then when this happens, the wallet balance changes from the individual card, for this case it will be Visa, to the total wallet balance. So it's the same thing for Stripe. I have the intro, I have the loop, and I have the outro. The same thing for Discover. So those are just the segments I'm using. Like I said, this particular animation will be on the LottieFiles platform. So check the description or comments of this video. You can essentially go there, download it, check it, use it the way you want, dissect it, reverse engineer it so you can understand how this interaction works better. So after adding my segments, I just moved into state machine, and then I started doing my interaction. It took me 4 state machines to get to this point until I'm finally satisfied with the interaction. But let me show you the one I prefer the most, the one I love the most, how you can set it up. So I'm just going to create a new state machine here to show you. So this is the new state machine. The first thing I want to do is bring in my idle state. That's going to be my initial state. And I want to make this the global state. So after every interaction, after you move away from a card, I want it to return to this idle state. So how do I do that? I'm going to bring the global state into the canvas too. Then connect this to this. Then I'm going to create an input. I'm going to call it state. It's going to be a string input, so I can move between each of the segments, each of the card from the individual cards overing back to the idle state. So I'm going to make the default state idle. Then I'm going to use that input to drive the transition from the idle to the global state. So what I'm doing technically is I'm making this idle, this particular segment, I'm making it my global state. So let's do that. I'm going to click on the transition. I'm going to add a condition that says when the state is equals to idle, move this into global state. And I'm going to loop this. As long as you are in this state, I want this animation to continue looping so it doesn't stop. So the next thing I want to do is bring in my Visa intro. That's my first card. I'm just going to drag and drop this right here. So let's think about this. From this global state, I want to move into the Visa card intro once the cursor hovers over the Visa card. So I'm going to need a transition here. Then I'm going to need a condition for that transition. So this is pretty simple. Since we have this string input already, I can now just create another string, a unique string for the Visa card. How do I do that? I click on the transition. then add a condition that says go from the global state to the Visa card intro once the state, this particular input, is equals to Visa. So let's try that out. So is looping, is in the global state, is looping, and I'm going to change this from I do. I'm going to put Visa in this input here. So it moves to the Visa state. Then I want to bring in my Visa loop into the canvas. So from here, I want it to be like, once after this intro finishes playing, it just moves to the loop and then it continues looping. So what we can do is we can create an event. I'm going to create an event, call it Visa triggered. It's going to be an event. Save this. Then upon completion of this particular intro segment, this segment here, I want to fire an event, that event that we just created. So after configuring the onComplete action, we can now use that action, Visa triggered, to move from the intro state to the loop state. So how do I do that? I'm going to connect the two, then click on the transition, add a condition that says once this Visa triggered event has happened, move into the loop. And for the loop, I'm going to make it a loop, an infinite loop. So let's try that out. I'm going to change this to Visa. Yeah, and then it moves into the loop and then it continues looping. So the next thing I want to do is, once this loop, to get out of this loop, I want the user to be able to move their cursor away from the card, and then we enter into the outro, the Visa outro animation. So let me just bring Visa outro onto my canvas and I'll connect the loop. Before that, let's create an event that will help us transition from the loop to the Visa outro. So I'm going to create a new input. It's going to be an event. I'm going to call it Visa out, make it an event. Then I'm going to connect my loop to my Visa card outro. I'm going to add the condition Visa out. Then from here, the next thing I want to do is, once this Visa outro, let me just play the segment so you see what I'm talking about. So once that finishes playing, I want to set my state back to I do, so we can move into the global state again, and then we can continue the loop. So what I can do is, on complete action for the Visa card outro, I can set an input value. I'm going to make my state I do. So let's see what we've done so far. We have this. I'm going to change this to Visa. Then it moves into the loop. Then from here, I can trigger the Visa out to move into the outro. And then it sets the state back to I do. Then to move back to I do, to move out of the outro back to the global state, which is our I do segment, I can just add a transition from this to the I do. Then add a condition that says once state is I do, move back to the beginning state, the beginning segment, which is our global state. So let's try that out. Changing this to Visa. Then I'm going to click on Visa out. Then it moves back to the global state after it finishes playing the outro animation. So let's add an interaction to this particular flow that we've created. Let's make it so that we can actually hover over the Visa card and hover out of it for those interactions to happen. I'm going to go to the interaction tab. I'm going to add a new pointer enter because I want this to happen on over action. Then I'm going to choose, my layer name is going to be my Visa card. The action is what is the transition here? Okay, so the first one is state. To move from the idle state to the Visa card, what we've set is our state is equals to Visa. So that is what we are going to add in the action. We want to set input value and we want to make that state is equals to Visa. And I'm going to save this. So let's try that out. And if I hover over this, and it just happens, we've moved from the global state to the Visa intro. It plays the intro and then it moves to the loop. But if I move out of here, nothing happens. That's because we've not created the over out action for this particular element. So let's create that right now. So the next thing I want to do is add another interaction. I'm going to make it pointer exit because I want this to happen once the user stops hovering over this particular element. That's the Visa card. The layer name is going to be my Visa card. And the action is going to be, I want to fire an event. What event is that? The Visa out event. Then I'm going to save this. If you remember, to move from the loop to the Visa card outro segment, what we've used for our transition is the Visa out event. So what we've just done is we've set the interaction in such a way that once the user stops hovering over the Visa card, it fires this event, which is the Visa out. Then we can move from the loop to the card outro. Then once the card outro finishes playing, it sets this state idle. It set the state back to idle. Then we can move back to the global state. So let's just try that out. Then we have the loop. Then if I move it moves back to the global state. It plays the outro animation before it moves back to the global state. So that's just how you configure this particular type of interaction where we have an intro, we have a loop, and we have an outro that are all connected to a global state, a single state from which all of the remaining animations can happen. So we can just do the same thing for Stripe and Discover. It's still the same process. You create, you add the intro into the canvas, you connect it with a state, with the string state, you do the triggered and the out animation, then you connect it. So that's the same thing I've done here. So for the Stripe intro, I'm using the transition that says when the state is equals to Stripe, move into the Stripe intro. Then from here, I'm using the Stripe triggered event. This is going to fire Stripe triggered upon completion. Then I'm using that to move into the Stripe loop. And to get out of the loop to the outro animation, I'm using the Stripe out event for that. Then once the Stripe outro finishes playing, it sets the state to idle, and then we can use this last transition to move from the Stripe out to the Stripe to the global state, the idle state. So this is it. I can hover over any of the cards. The card balance shows, and if I stop hovering, it moves back into the wallet. So that's that for this particular video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comment section. Like I said, this particular animation will be available for free on the LottieFiles platform. You can download it, remix it, reverse engineer it, do anything you want. That is the way you get familiar with the platform and you're able to do different kind of things with it. So let's keep creating. Cheers.